distinguished guests and panelists, and a great honor for us to be here. And also, I'm personally honored to be here as the moderator for this panel discussion. Now, a brief introduction to our panelists first, well, in alphabetic order of the family name. So, Chai Gaofeng, the Vice President of State Grid Energy Research Institute, welcome. Tao Jinghua, Executive Director of the Secretariat of the Alliance of International Science Organization, and also former Director General of the Bureau of International Cooperation, Dai Changzheng, Dean of the School of International Relations, University of International Business and Economics, FANG Li, Director of the World Resources Institute, Beijing office, Jianguo, former director of the Chinese Academy of International Trade and Economic Cooperation and CCG Senior Fellow, David Pan, Executive Dean and Professor, Schwarzman College of Tsinghua University, Lili, Deputy Dean of National Academy of Development and Strategy at Renmin University of China, Zhang Yuning from Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, an expert also online with us. And so, Professor Zhang, are you with us? Can you hear us? Yes, exactly. Very clear. I am SCCG's Deputy Director and also Senior Fellow Liu Hong. We have heard some wonderful ideas in this morning session, and also from the previous speakers. I believe that there are a lot of important issues waiting ahead for us to elaborate on, especially the role of think tanks in this unprecedented age, how we should better play our role, and how can we better bringing in new talent and many others, and also how we can better research on China-US relationship, and also how we can make our contribution to the development of the world in the future, etc. So very pleased that we have brought together all the prominent figures from different organizations here with us today for this forum. And I believe every one of you can share with us from different perspectives. And in this post-pandemic era, and also given the current conflict and dispute in the international community, China is actually the only economy that is now having a positive economic figure. Now China started its dual cycling economy, and the U.S. just finished its presidential election this morning. We have heard some interesting views from the American and experts. So for this session, about these issues, let us focus on the role of think tanks, how we better manage our human resources, and how we can make sure that we can play a better role in building this global ecosystem. So let us do this in an alphabetic order of our family names. So Mr. Cao, please. Thank you. I am from State Grid Energy Research Institute. So actually from this name, you may know that our institute has been established for 10 years. So it has been renamed for several rounds. What we do is to research China's energy industry and its relevant issues. So it is actually the fact that our institute has been growing with China's reform and opening up and economic development in the past years. So basically, we have witnessed that the past 4 decades have seen our growth as a energy research institute, and we have about 300 researchers focusing on studies on the supply and demand of China's energy industry, state-owned enterprises reform, and the market orientation reform, energy structure changing, and many others. So it is a quite systematic research realm that we conduct. So this is about our institute. Well, now back to the theme of this panel. The first point I would like to make is that think tanks and many other think tanks share the same nature of us. Actually, are part of the big family of think tanks. We cannot say we're important part, but actually it is an indispensable part.
The Chinese system and Chinese structure determine that the think tank as such status that is affected directly by the policy. It can feel the changes, census changes of the policies very directly. And also with the researchers and of the policies, the makers of the policies, they have direct interactions between each other. So we think that the think tank of the businesses are very important part of the think tank. Energy, power, though that's just one industry, because the power and energy is very related to everyday life. That's why I would like to say that 140 years with electricity, and I cannot imagine without electricity what our society will be looking like and what our life will be looking like. We have promising future. Following that, another point I would like to say is that how we cooperate with government, how we affect the government, how we affect their policy making processes. Every year, we will have co-researching program with government officials, and I get engaged in policy making processes every year. If our expert have such a reputation, and the government will ask you to join in such a program to get interaction. If you get more interaction, you get more engaged, then our voice can be heard and can be more powerfully and be better accepted. So for the National Energy Bureaus and ADRC for Finance Bureaus and Science Bureau in China, basically we are servicing a service for them. We have 30 programs every year and working with government every year. Second part is how we can let people know spreading our ideas, and we encourage our researchers and to publish more papers. We encourage them to get engaged more into international communication events. Every year, next weekend, we will have the yearly result releasing to release every year researching result to the society in this way to show our understanding on the electricity and power. The third part mainly about recruitment of the talent. We all know that talent is very important, especially at the 300 staff level. We need to recruit some talents every year, and how we can ensure that we can attract more talent, especially with young ones. We let the young people know there are always space for them to play. On 10 projects for everyone, I can sponsor him for 300,000 RMB for one person. So you can choose what you are most interested in your idea. You think the vast potential lying here. You can select a project, and I encourage him to write the essays, to write the papers. and we encourage them to offer ideas for government. If our researchers can get approval or the very response from the central government, that would be very meaningful and significant. While we are encouraging all the young people, young talents to go to the front, because our research institute, a lot of people's salary higher than me, because they need to show their ideas. They are the one making ideas. They are the ones to propaganda the ideas. We are working on the energy electricity, facing a very transformation period. We know that energy, including the currently, just like mentioned by the former speakers, including about the renewable energy, it must be sustainable. We need to guarantee that the power must be high with high efficiency, low carbon, clean. In the energy sector, something impossibility triangle, and we are setting the goals of the three impossibility triangle, especially as a think tank in energy and electricity sector. We are turning the impossibility triangle into the possibility triangle. Thank you for Director Liu, especially with the national grid. We are setting up such a very think tank and to attract talent. That's very practical and very fact and to encourage the talents very distinct. And because we need to follow the agenda. So we will end at 1 o'clock around. So every panelist will have 6 minutes to share about your idea. So next speaker, we would like to have Chao Jinghua to share with us about his idea. And welcome, Director Cao. From the Belt and Road Science League. Our think tank is maybe different from the major types of think tank. Alliance of science organizations for better road development. We have been registered in the civil society ministry and also approval by the city council in China, especially for all the resources collection for the major decision-making processes to tell Chinese stories to support the pandemic fighting, playing a very important role. President Xi has been noting and has been emphasizing a lot on the think tank. He thinks that think tank is very important part. In this year, after the pandemic, especially for scholars, academy level has shared all the ideas, experiences working on the anti-pandemic. And from the very beginning, actually, we have been sharing between each other about China scientists and for their gene sequences, and also about research result has been shared between each other through our platform, ANSO, alliances, our alliance, ANSO, especially for researching progress in China for all the experiences which we are sharing with them, facilitating the co-development of the vaccines and the three-phase drug on that. ANSO are playing a very role, especially a very bridge between each other. Recovered protein vaccine. The vaccine for the three-phase clinic testing actually has been conducted currently. For the Belt and Road ANSO, led by the China Academy of Science and with very supporting international organizations at the end of 2018 registered in that year. And Xi also gave us congratulations letter at that time. and we have been conducting several measures for innovation and to facilitate the sustainable goals and to construct the shared future. And during the whole process, we want to build into some organizations very influential. There's a background of government. We have been contacting with international organizations. Building such international organizations, there are many international organizations, and to write the strategy report. So how you differentiate yourself? They asked me, and we want to take practical measures and deeds to including the think tanks to do our part to facilitate the shared future and come to today, given the very impact of the pandemic, 60 members and 14 including the Italian and for the national, especially including for other countries, all the authorities, and we are playing our part as a shared future on science and to share the very experience of this part, especially for anti-pandemic. Governance is very crucial. With good governance, only through that we can control the pandemic diseases and come to the next stage about recovery of the work and to return to the normal life, including my think tank, tend to normal, mainly rely on the vaccine. So ANSO take the vaccine as a very crucial point to facilitate, and she said that we want to turn that into public product. ANSO has been facilitating on this part for 10 of the 8 among all 15 meetings we have organized working with South Africa, and we met the ministers in South Africa and to get the protein vaccine in South Africa for 3-phase clinical testing. And that might be beneficial for African countries and can has massive produce and also for the antibodies efficiency can be improved for 100% effect after 3 shots. During the process, the ANSO has wrote some reports on that part, use our own way, and to submit it to the government, including about like one vaccine. The leaders has got approval to turn the vaccine into public goods product before she's speeches, like 12 days before she's speeches, coming to the related department from the very view of March 10th think tank. And also we know that the pandemic has turned the food security a very important issue. We offer the government verification and as national organizations, we were providing training online and to ensure that the developed countries through the highly controlled technology, including about the market flowing. We know that especially for the sheep market, and we have done some work on that part and how you can buy the food to ensure the flow of the goods during the pandemic, and a cargo in the leakage of the oil, and through the telemetric technology and to offer them the very material for the government and to prevent further leaking. The think tank is a very important part of work of ANSO. We use our seed fund as a think tank to facilitate the further deployment for the rights of the women. Women play a very important role for fighting against the pandemic. They play the full role of the women, especially after the pandemic, the children and women, how we can guarantee their interest. We are also working on that part. ANSO has offered a whole series of toolbox from the support of academy meeting to training and to cooperate for research and plus training for students as training students are very crucial. We need high quality development about the road. If there's no engineer, and hard to explain on that part. So the pandemic, we have 300 PhDs, 200 masters are come to China to join the program. The former two speakers mentioned about China-USA cooperation, because cooperation on science and technology come to a low point. That is a very crucial relationship for the whole world. And also doing our part. There are some things to do with the China House Room and the China House Room of the Washington. And our organizations are working with the Physical Association and USA Science, Science Society. We are working with them to facilitate the cooperation. And for this cooperation should never be cut. And we are facilitating the cooperation between all the researching. We hope at academy level we can have more coordination, because fundamental research cuts are very horrible. If the fundamental science belonging to the common humans cannot be communicated, what else can be communicated? For high tech, you may think that is very sensitive, that people should not communicate that part. In basic science, we should facilitate more communication. So we should not cut off the basic research.
So they have their fear. Their fear is that, China can quickly turn basic research into some kind of high tech. Okay, they train the student. The next day, this guy or her service. So in other words, that 就是中国的很多事情呢，我们也
We need to reflect a lot on China, including what we did, our behavior. A lot of details there, like if you only centered on yourself, like the researching cooperation, if we just think ourselves or centered on ourselves, probably that is really hard to adapt the cooperation. It's lacking openness, lacking transparency, lacking such a huge reciprocal cooperation. And from the think tank's view, we need to reflect on that part, especially we need to know the story of international community, also combined with China's particular situation. We are a bridge and as the interpreter for China, for the globe, to provide the vision, suggestions for the world peace. I'm really glad to join such an event today, and I hope we can offer more contribution for better ideas for China, and to play the role of very bridge between us and the international communities. And Secretariat, Director and ANSO in Intelligent Initiative is very reputation there for the think tank, not only as initiator but also as a practitioner, especially through the vaccine as a very starting point for China as in developing countries. It can get a very spreading. Thank you so much, Director. Now let's welcome our Mr. Dad from University of International Business Economics. Mr. Dad, the dean.
Say sorry for this event because I just did not expect so formal, so international. You see, I'm from the University of International Business and Economics. You see, I just gave a lecture yesterday evening, and but I did not. I'm sorry for that. I just put a jacket and ran here. I should say sorry for you, all of you, especially my old friend, Professor Wang. I met him in Kennedy School of Government in Harvard. For a long time no see. Okay. 我觉得这个邀请很高兴啊，因为我们毕竟在大学里面，大学就是要有志，是吧？大学没有志。
Really glad to be here. University is about knowledge. We talk about think tank building. To say that we can combine with our own ideas and practices. Or in other ways, talk about think tank, we need to divide that into different types. First, about strategy think tank. Strategy think tanks mainly for the macro level, just like like CCG is doing the work similar to that. So we can continue the work on that. Second type is that political policy type. Policy type is has very specific targets, including about energy sector or each bureau at their external brain to help to make decisions.
Another type is the social or civil think tank. So they have their special advantages in making their research and making their voices, and also even in guiding the public opinion or influencing the general public. Maybe you have heard something about University of International Business and Economics, particularly during this time when U.S. and China are in all sorts of collisions and even possibly the trade wars, tensions. So actually, our School of International Relations have started from zero to now a 500 student enrollment, including the undergraduate, graduate, and even PhDs. So here in our school, we have enrolled more than 30 international students in the recent 2 years, bringing in their international visions and perspectives. So with that, we as university, we can bring in a different talent, making their contribution by sharing their international perspective. So actually, I think that's true to many of your institutions, including both domestic and overseas students or researchers. I believe this is a very good combination, which can give us more comprehensive vision and insight. But I think stay on the top. The leader of the think tanks are very important. Well, now I would like to move on to my next point. What exactly should be the major issues that we study? So by building our think tanks, it is really important that we figure out what subjects we study on. And then that leads to the fourth one, that is, we need to distinguish or differentiate ourselves from other think tanks. We need to focus on different issues, different areas. That means we can have a different advantages in some specific sectors or areas. For example, the universities institutes, we can be academic influencers, and we can participate in some of the national projects, and also we can cooperate with media groups in China and letting the world know what real China is like. And we need to make sure our voices can be correctly and properly spread into the world. And also for universities, they can also be selective by focusing on different topics, different subjects. For example, in our university, we can focus on business issues and economic issues, for example, because we do enjoy our economic or academic advantages. We need to have our distinguished features in our research fields. But last but not least, how can we play a better role as think tanks? We need to be flexible, we need to be powerful, we need to have the right of funding, and we need to have our features. Only by that can we play a bigger role to not just the general society, but also to our policymakers. And finally, I wish that think tanks like CCG and other private think tanks can have a better future. And I sincerely hope that think tanks can have closer ties with universities, because universities usually have a lot of talented people. Like Mr. Huo Jianguo must agree with me. Actually, Mr. Huo is actually an honorary professor in our university. We're very close friends. So I'm looking forward to closer partnership with all of you and from different sectors. And hopefully we can be more motivated and have closer partnerships so that we can make further contribution to both our country and our society. Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing with us not just about how we can better integrate our talented people, but also on how we can strengthen our ties among think tanks and universities. Very good point. Thank you again. Now with that, let me give the floor to Fang Li, Director of World Resources Institute, Beijing office. Thank you, Mike, for a kind introduction. Well then, 6 minutes, far from being enough. Well, I am from WRI. You can visit our website for further information. We're an independent think tank established in 1982 with thousands of researchers researching on issues like natural resources, energy, environment, economic issues, global governance, finance, and many other multidisciplinary areas. I've been working in this institute and half of the time from home, of course. Yes, actually, I believe many of you are like me from multiple academic and professional background. But actually, we have a lot of different perspectives. So the first point I would like to make is more macro perspective, including the military security, political security, and public health. So actually, environment is a non-conventional area. For this year's General Assembly of UN, President Xi said that China would reach its carbon neutrality by 2060, which will be a game changer by then. And actually, I believe many countries put carbon neutrality at top of their priority list. So why is that so important? Why so much attention has been given to that? Because it is exactly how we are addressing the current challenges and difficulties, because we need to build up our capacity in that specific field. In the newly signed SRPE, what does it have anything to do with the global carbon neutrality? Because the new energies will be given highest priority to that list. And the strategic type of think tanks and technology-focused think tanks can better cooperate in that end. So they need to have this consciousness and then turn that consciousness to the willingness. But then how? This is how we think tanks can play our role. Well, the second important keyword I would like to share is C, another C, capacity. I believe that the China think tanks have made impressive achievements the past year. I reviewed WR's research history in China. So in the past years, Basically, what we do is to introducing advanced experience, methods, or philosophies from other countries. And we have also issued some of the tools that are widely applied by many other institutes. And this year, it was scheduled to be a maritime summit, bringing together the leaders from 14 countries. And the Secretariat was established in our WRI. But the question is, how can we make sure that these potential resources can be turned into our own capacity? And then with that capacity, we can really provide our solution. Well, actually, this is my question, because I find that Chinese thinkers are becoming more proactive in that direction. And now we're facing many good opportunities to build up our capacity. Because in the past, China used to close itself. But right now, China's voice started to be heard by the world. And Chinese people, for example, all of them learn English and they are able to speak in English. And then they can tell a Chinese story better. Ever since kindergarten, we started learning English all the way through elementary school, middle school, and universities. And then we can see we have even have a simultaneous interpretation available at the meetings, and also we have even the machine translation available in various meetings, all facilitating our international communication. It is exactly how we can call it a two-way communication. So for think tanks, this two-way communication means that we need to make sure that information can be well shared and well communicated both ways. And on the other hand, we hope that think tanks like us can serve as bridges between different stakeholders. And the next question is how we can have a systematic and long-term development in the future. Think tanks like us have a very good fundraising channels, but actually that is prohibited in China due to some specific regulations and laws. But we know that in the international community, think tanks develop with the support of a very healthy ecosystem and fundraising mechanism. And the government, no matter how and who take over, there's an evolving door. But in China, it's a different case. It's a one-way evolving door in China. So I hope that for think tanks in China, at least we need to have some of this evolving door to make sure we have access to the corresponding talented people at least. Another point I would like to make is about the conflict. Hopefully we can have this friendly competition in the future or constructive competition based on clear and fair rules where we can play on a leveled playground. So from consciousness to willingness, and from willingness to and from capacity to powerful, the two steps need us to empower, not just being empowered by the government, but also empowering public sectors, individual businesses. Another one is commitment and communication. Both three areas need to be put in more investment. Thank you very much. Actually, Madam Fang is very low profile, and your institute is very low profile. But her points are excellent about how think tanks should develop in the future, and and she herself is actually a very, very active professional. So then, let us give us floor to Huo Jianguo, former director of Chinese Academy of International Trade and Economic Cooperation. Please. Good morning, everyone. Very pleased to be here for this forum. Well, I think in recent years, China's think tanks have witnessed a very impressive progress, whether for the government-funded ones and private ones and academic ones, all of them, and have become very innovative and doing very well. But actually, the important thing is that all of them must remain independent in their academic studies. It means that we do not follow anyone or take any side. We need to remain independent and objective so that we can ensure the results of our research are objective. So in our research, we need to make our contribution to not just the society, but also the country. But in terms of research, it takes time to lay a sound foundation. Otherwise, the future studies will not be very solid. Actually, some scholars or researchers have very prominent publication. It is not just because they themselves are intelligent and make their own contributions, but also because they absorb important and valuable information from the previous studies and publications. So when we're studying one specific issue, if we can integrate all different papers or intelligence from both the domestic realm but also the overseas ones, they can really form very insightful opinions. So I believe that think tanks must remain independent. Be truthful. We need to stick to that fundamental principle. This is a key. The second point is that think tanks must be visionary, must be forward-looking, because we need to see things that other people may not see right now, but will happen in the future. So right now, think tanks in the East are now rising, but actually the West academia used to be very, very strong in their researches. But now the East, think tanks in the East are starting to rise up and getting stronger and more influential. And so actually, everyone has their own say to some extent, some big, some small. But we have to admit that every think tank has their role to play, and there's some value in that, because it is the same with the general trend of our social development. We have to know that that all think tanks have their voices and have their weight in the intellectual realm, because who is standing at the stage right now? It is impossible that there's just a single player standing on the stage playing a broader range of diversity of all different think tanks we need to have different voices, different perspectives. And then we need to make sure we speak the same language. It is like what we speak here in China, Mandarin, instead of the local accents. In the international academic community, we need to speak the same language. Otherwise, we couldn't understand each other. Okay, that is all I have to say. Anyway, my point is that given the current global trend, there have been new things, changes. We need to play our due role. We need to remain independent. Otherwise, it's just now we're talking about free trade that is fair and just. So here, rules are important. And also, we're talking about open market, but opening is mutual. So there's something mutual. And also, we're talking about internal system. So if you are to sign some agreement, bilateral or multilateral, you need to make sure you follow the rules and follow the international practices. So we know the border policies of different countries. They have all different policies and practices. But all these things should also be considered based on the fact that more attention has been given to national security.
We need to have in-depth analysis on that part rather than present the trend direction of the global development. Or is that can be accepted by more and more countries if you can understand that the high level opening up? And or is that the conception your understanding is different from others? In that way, it's really hard for you to suit into the society, international community. Not take USA as a representative for international community, and also, or do not take the contradiction between China and the USA as the contradiction of international community. Though USA has very high influence on international community, or you cannot have a far-sightedness and standing on the current problems. It's still shallow. How we can define about the procedures and how we can deliver that part. And we need to also have objective analysis on that part, especially while I was the director at the Institute for Research. A lot of researchers want to give their voice. Sometimes they give the wrong voice, and also I got criticized by the higher leaders. It's a very severe problem, wrong things. Then I come back to them. If you think your idea is right, you do not have to go to the public and to talk to the leaders. And we can keep independent thinking, but quite really difficult to let the leaders always very sensitive to the ideas. You can keep the voice low, but you can keep your dependent thinking. So I respect the very researcher's idea. And if he lose the idea, lose the confidence, then it will come to follow the false idea or follow other people's idea. That would be so wrong. This way, it's so different from the academy. Or such a person will not get too far in academic research. Thank you so much. And you talk about the very idea spirit of think tank. Use a very and use very language easy to understand for others to follow. really opportunity for us to have all the journalists here, and we have 30 seconds for each person to have a conclusion sharing. And now we have Schwarzman School in time to share with us. And after this, we will have conclusion. I think that anybody sitting here must truly love think tank. Thank you. It's so complete information, too wide and too wise, and nothing for me left to say. I need to think how to say. While I wake up this morning, and any index PG #1 for index ranking, and I talked to Lili this morning. He said that it's so good, and that said it's good. Not only ranking #1, a reputation, recognition by everyone #1. The very crucial. We need to applaud for CG. Thank you so much. It's a good example for us to follow. Why is it so good? It has a team, it has a leader. That's a talent. Because you got talents, you can do good. 12 years. You see that CCG is growing. 12 years. Good direction, right direction, talent. Follow the trend. It grow. CCG is a very example. The first sentence I want to say that is a good example for us to follow. Brookings or Landon Peterson. China CCG is very model. If we can follow CCG, the models, and we can catch up. And one batch, we will do it good. Second point I would like to say is that I wanted to talk about the influences, about national influences, academy influences. It will be then I make decision to not talk about that, because I was learning engineering science, because I do not talk too much on the good words in 1984, like Roman Club. I'm not sure you have heard of that small book, and even that's is handwriting, and I read it for several times. Talk about history, development of human society, the future problems, the food, the pollution, and the future problems. At that time, had such in-depth understanding, economic development, and unbalanced geographically, a lot of ideas, and I still can remember today. It's very influential ideas. In 1980s, Tipler, a person, the third wave, you check that book, and I read that for several times, talking about challenges of human society and what we should do. Selling the books in abroad is really difficult to sell a book in abroad. 12 million has been sold at that time. And Chinese have a lot of population, but in that country do not have such a population. It can be sold for 12 million. It's really amazing. Another for big trend, and talk about influences. It's not about it's not about what you are saying, or it's mainly about how you lead, and also must be very thoughtful. The mind and the must have the fine sighted, and you need to, or what we call is you can look before other people can feel. And even come to the Mars, and maybe I cannot go to Mars for my whole life. The tag changed the life of people 20 years ago, 15 years ago. If I take such a very phones, I talk to New York, you must say that it's a cheater, or it must be a frauder. And basically that, I talk about that web classes, that people think that's false or wrong ideas. It's far from our imagination. It's beyond our imagination we can do this today. At that time, I have not good English. But tomorrow, what will happen? We need to think about that, and especially the leadership of the ideas. As we got 1 minute, I think one is the science. Science for the change on the future must be very huge. Especially I graduate as an engineering student, a very major change. While I was teaching computer in Jinghua University, the whole computer volume is 100G, 100G for all the computers volume plus together. And you need to wear the wearing the cover the foot, and you need to wear a suit and to enter into the computer room. And now one phone has a volume capacity higher than all the computers plus together in that time in Tsinghua University. That's about the trend. Another part is about form. The economy has been changed. For the form has changed. The form has changed, including about all different forms. And something will not work anymore. It's not about we are talking here about not working anymore. It's not working for truth. Like the professional can play their role. We have a lot of experts and independent ideas. The form changes, the shape changes, the way changes. And for the near future, we still what will be the impact for the near future? The tech economy form is a trend. I just my own idea. Another part about the style, four words is mainly about speak the truth and not about the truth. About do the practical to seek the truth. Information must be balanced. The information must be accurate. With no balanced information, it's all bias. And how you can conduct research given the bias data? Oh, that would be collapse of the foundation. And how much time I got? If no time, I will offer. If I got time, I got a kiss. Like 4 years ago, Trump. At that time, elected while I was in New York. All the newspapers, all the magazines, and crowded in Trump. You watch the TV stations, like everything is mainly about like many people. But 10,000 for Hillary, and 10,000 for Trump's place. It's like fake information. It looks very beautiful. A lot of watch there in person. Not so many people as you look in TV. Like Henry last time visited a lot of on thing, on field, and to remove the bias part. And in that way, we can have the fact-based research. Thank you. Thank you. Actually use a very humor language, very fast speeches, and actually very important information for us. And as a think tank, we need to have a, especially for the imagination, we need to have a, like, we need to have a prediction on that part. We need to do something like people have not imagined yet. Now welcome Wang to share with us from Renmin University, People University. And here, like Pan has mentioned that actually we have been discussing about CCG in my idea. And also I would like to introduce myself, especially for sitting here for this panel. My researching field is working on the research on think tank. I'm from think tank's view. And we think that for CCG and China and globalization, for the past 10 years, always have attention on that part. And also their work, in my idea, for progress of think tank in China, for such a level of think tank, that's very leader. Actually, for Councillor Henry Wang, and for Secretary Miao, thank you so much. I want to salute to you first for your contribution. Second part, for building a platform, especially for all the international think tanks can join together, given such a background of international changes, environment, challenges there, to discuss about what role think tanks should play. It's very timely and very important. My first point I would like to express. The second point, I talk about our school. And our full name is mainly about National Development and Strategy Research Institute for People's University in China and Renmin University. And that is a think tank for university. I would like to offer some information on that part. And we are the first batch of selected think tank. Last year, in the very national high-level think tank, for 3 consecutive testing, we got the frontier, first tier ranking, and for the very prize on that part, a reputation, and from management and also from the scholars, with their effort, with all the strength and effort of the whole university, we are building such a think tank, and the director is mainly in charge by the secretary, the first secretary of the whole university, and also that the counselor is in charge by the dean. So we have put a lot of effort on our part. So I would like to center on the topic talking about what we do after the pandemic, and with 1 minute to finish the introduction. Talk about university think tank. We got summer holidays, we got winter holidays, but actually every think tank has no holiday for winter and summer. After outbreaking of the pandemic during the spring festival, and our think tank, and for myself, 7 days of spring festival and no day off. The whole winter holiday we have been working, and after outbreak of pandemic, we organized a very urgent researching team, work on public policies research to offer various solutions for the nation, and also to offer the spreading of our ideas, not only serving for decision-making assistance, but also for guidance for the media information. We organize scholars and online forums to spread information and ideas, and we want to work with CCG, and we want to follow CCG example to catch up. Another point I would like to say, given so much changes happened on others international arena, so what the role think tanks should play, given that background? And my last point is that, because recently we know that our think tank, we are organizing the researching team, researching on China-US relationship apart from think tank. And I'm also working on the public relationship and China-USA relationship. We know that given such a background of the international arena, so China-USA is not only very important, crucial bilateral relationship, but also very important national relationship. That is very crucial for the president election. Biden will be the president, and after Biden come to the White House, for China-US relationship will come to a new stage. But there's a very basic trend will not change, no matter USA scholars and China scholars. The competition between the two major powers, such a main line will not change. And after Biden come to the stage, probably the policy will be adjusting, including there are possibilities of the secretary of the nation of the state, and also the policies trend for China USA for the public field, a product part. We will have some cooperation, and also the civil cultural changes may be restarted, but competition will not change. A USA think tank or China think tank, including the Europe think tanks and all other countries think tank, we all hope that the boat can be sailing forward, the boat of the world, the boat of the globe, the planet can be sailing forward steadily. So we are working on researching on the content of other think tanks. We discover that the very common sense for think tanks common sense is that we hope that China USA can have cooperation among the competition, so we can have a very friendly competition plus the cooperation. That's our major background after pandemic in China and outside countries, national countries. The global crisis and the common crisis do not eliminate such a tension. We know that sitting here we have the friends and experts here from USA. I think you will agree with me that the pandemic do not release such a tension between the two countries, actually accelerate the tension. It's not whose wrongness, it's very complicated. And we do not want to say that, but it happened. we think that not only China think tank or all think tanks in different countries, what we can do is that because all the country think tanks are serving for their own national interest, but actually for international arena or public interest, especially for climate, health, and for anti-terrorism, what we should do is that we should jump out of the scope of our own nation. We should jump out of the dimension of our own nation, serving for the planet and to offer public interest for the whole planet and to serve for the good of the globe planet to give our advices. That's my suggestion here. Another point I would like to add is that for not recently for China and globalization has organized a very event and I was in audiences online for China and globalization.
And also we have the Zhang Thangton professor that I work with in a global leadership program. So I really pay attention to that event. And he mentioned about the China-U.S. relationship, in which it is really important that currently the two countries cannot build mutual trust. So actually, maybe actually the senior leaders of the two countries must see that they used to have some interaction. President Xi used to meet the Vice President Biden during the Obama administration. So right now, given the current context, it is important that the two countries can rebuild that trust. But very, very difficult. But exactly that is what we should work on, because without trust, there's no cooperation. So ever since this year, I really am a fan of CCG, and I personally have observed many of CCG's events, both offline and online. And we have seen that many important people from both political and economic areas participated in those events. I believe this is an excellent platform on which the countries from all across the world can better understand each other, because only by understanding each other can they build up a mutual trust, and then that trust can lead to cooperation. So whether as individual or as an individual country or a region, all the world is now in the changing process. Now there are divides in both public opinions, political issues. So actually, corruption has been everywhere. So actually, we have to make sure that think tanks from different countries, different cultures can really help in rebuilding the trust. Finally, I'd like to say that I believe think tanks can play that role and can shoulder those responsibilities. Michael Mann, a historian, very famous, said that the power of the state is actually consists of ideological, political, economic, and military powers. So to some extent, logical can play that role, and that is exactly why Michael mentioned about the importance of logical power, because that decides how we will react in many other areas. Thank you. That's all for my sharing. Thank you, Madam Wang. Yes, the future of Chinese think tanks lies in our cooperation, stepping forward together into the future so that we can really tell a better story and make a common voice. Now we have another panelist, Zhang Yanning, online actually. Are you here with us? Great. Yes, I'm here. So you hear us? So please, now you have the floor to share with us. He is from the Chinese Academy of Social Science and also the expert of the academic committee. Good morning, everyone. We've had a very long morning. It's running late. I'm the only one standing between you and lunch, I believe. So anyway, I'm sorry that I couldn't be there personally. I used to work in CAS, and I had some titles, and I've been in charge in some schools, and I focus on policy research. And I participated in China's APEC and the ASEAN Free Trade Zone and RSAP policy research. Well, I'll try to be brief because we're running late. Hello, can you still hear? Well, thank you all for staying with us. So let's make sure we solve all the technical problems. Can you check your mic, the two mics, making sure they're both on? Yes, perfect now. Okay, briefly, I used to work in CAT, working for dozens of years, researching on policy issues. From China's participation of APEC and the ASEAN Free Trade Zone, and then to the signing of RCD, I've been doing some research. And now I am in Shandong University and helping them establish an institute of international studies. So today I want to share with you about universities think tanks. Because our school in Shandong University was just regarded as ranked as a high-end think tank in the university, focusing on maritime strategies and regional issues and environmental governance. So for university think tanks, the first job for us is to conduct researches about the world economic order, involvement, regional policies, and the relevant issues are all under our research. But so far, there's still no specific area study theory, and what I'm working on is some books about that. So I believe that for university think tanks, it is really important for them to conduct theoretical research. Another one is that it is important for university think tanks to conduct strategic research because universities are different. Maybe not the case for necessarily the ones in Beijing, but it is true for the local universities. President Xi mentioned that we're now in an unprecedented change, unprecedented in 100 years. So actually, last year there was a book called The World and China, Unprecedented. There's not much publicity of that book, but after being published, the publisher told me that it was already sold out about 150,000 editions. So now the second book will soon be published called Major Strategic Strategies for Future. So for universities as think tanks, it is important for them to think about those issues that are of strategic importance. And actually, people were talking about the role club. I think it is important for us to do that. Now, the second point is that universities enjoy specific features. So the research from universities must be differentiated. For example, about COVID-19, because I was in Beijing, so first thing after that, I organized some research team about the pandemic evolvement in China and also in the surrounding countries. Also, based on what we research, we try to provide some product references by giving them some specific suggestions to the decision makers. And we propose that the restoring social and economic activities and restart work and schools should be taken into consideration. I believe that universities do enjoy specific advantages. So I think it is important for universities in fact to build those features. But actually, we have to admit that we need to get approval from the government when it comes to important issues research. But being away from capital Beijing, it is sometimes very challenging. So the institutional arrangement must be changed to maximize our role as university think tank. So as an expert, once important things happen, all sorts of media would come to interview. So now, for example, China is facing a very complicated situation. So academic research, strategic research, or solution research must be conducted based on sufficient information. So think tanks, again, must be able to collect information while influencing the general public, at least toward a better direction. So I think a think tank can play a big role in that regard. So sitting in this complicated environment, think tanks must play their role in guiding or influencing the opinions of the general public. I believe we should play a bigger role in that. Well, that's all for my point. Thank you. And just now I witnessed the launch of the private think tank alliance. I believe with that we can play a bigger role. Another point is that CCG has been doing an excellent job by bridging the domestic and overseas think tanks. But I think it is really important that we can convey the message or the voices from the Chinese think tanks to our overseas counterparts. Now, I'm not sure whether the overseas counterparts or the outside world can hear us. Maybe I think this is somewhere we can do better. Well, thank you for listening. Well, if you have 30 seconds to have a brief summary, what would you say to our audience, because we're really running out of time? As I mentioned before, in this changing, complicated era, think tanks should be proactive in guiding or influencing the public opinions. The second is that we need to play a bigger role in making our voices to the policymakers. Another one is that we need to better guide our students and the society. Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing. Well then, FANG Li, the director of the World Research Institute, please quickly wrap up, please. fragmented governance is no longer enough to address the challenges. So think tanks should really participate and engage in global governance by providing feasible solutions. So hopefully, CCG can play continuously a leading role in guiding all sorts of think tanks so that we can better open ourselves and better bring together information and better making our contribution. And I wish CCG a better center, and we need to tell a better Chinese story in a better way and really leading our thoughts. We need to seize the moment. We need to understand the features of the current world and maximize our role as think tanks. Think tanks are very important. We need to better share our resources. Hopefully, CCG, based on what we have done very well, will do better in bringing us together and closer. And we should work together to organize some events or forums. And also, we need to bring more young talent. And also, we need to open more channels and bring together more stakeholders so that we can provide better references to our decision makers. Moreover, we really need to play our role in building this community of a shared future for all mankind. Well, in this changing and complicated world, international studies and the studies on international issues will need our closer attention and need our closer partnership. Now, we're very glad to be part of this alliance, and we're willing to make our contribution to the common good of human society and also to a better future as a common community of shared future. Well, for this forum here today, itself indicates the deepening of Chinese reform and opening up because think tanks themselves reflect the openness of a country and its economic capacity of a country. And based on what I said before, I believe that ever since my start as a researcher, I believe that think tanks are, I think, are something really promising, and I am very optimistic about that role. And I hope that all the colleagues in think tanks can share our common ground in making better contribution to eliminate divides and differences in building trust and in facilitating partnership. Well, we need to have empathy. That means we need to put ourselves into other people's shoes. We really need to put ourselves into the shoes of policymakers, for example. For think tanks, I think it's very difficult, but I personally have been working in the government institute, good agencies, and also work as the deputy mayor at the
我们在批评政府的时候，我自己在想，哎，那天我是当政者的时候，我怎么想？
I were the decision maker, what would I do? That is the question I often ask myself in my research. So every time I hear some criticism about the government or government policies, we really need to put our shoes in the decision makers and put ourselves into the shoes of the decision makers. Again, thank you very much, all the panelists, for your wonderful sharing, both online and offline, and also thank you all the audience.